Hey guys! Thanks for joining me again for another Pixie Talks review vlog.
Pixie Talks, reviews and vlogs at Pixie Talks. Pixie Talks, reviews and vlogs at Pixie Talks.
Woo! Well, we are well into October now, so it's time for some spooky and otherwise horror-themed reviews. This week's title was suggested by Chris over at Patreon. Remember, I am only taking suggestions and requests from Patreon, so if there is something that you've always wanted to see me review, or if you just really like my content and would like to support me, I would greatly appreciate it if you considered pledging to my Patreon. And with that, we dive into a creepy little art film, Heartstring Marionette. Okay, this is one of the weirdest films I've ever watched. It's an artistic piece by independent filmmaker M. Strange, who is rather known for weird and freaky art pieces like this one. His style is eerie and, from what I can tell, probably supposed to be rather unsettling, but there's also kind of this haunting sort of prettiness to it that I can appreciate. This film's narrative is a tad hard to follow as it draws a lot of inspiration from traditional Japanese No theater. A large part of No storytelling presentation is the philosophy that it's more important to evoke emotions rather than to tell a coherent narrative. That the journey undertaken with the characters is more important than the story making sense. So while there is an overarching story here, that story is less important than the emotions that the piece makes you feel along the way. The story follows a faceless samurai in a world of puppets on a quest to kill an evil clown overlord to avenge his brother. He teams up with a foul-mouthed girl on her own quest for revenge, and they journey together facing the monsters that live all through the lands. He is the only one who can fight the monsters because he is the legendary Marionette Prince. It's sort of a hero's journey story, and it's clearly very deeply symbolic. Both of the characters are struggling with trauma and abusive pasts that continue to haunt their adult lives and their journey. The people that populate this world all wear masks while outside to avoid having their souls stolen. Marionettes are controlled from above while puppets are controlled from below. There is a lot of heavy-handed symbolism and metaphor being utilized here, though it's kind of just shrouded in this really dark, creepy, and foreboding atmosphere and visuals. The visuals are incredibly spooky, and watching an entire 2-hour-long feature film with them was difficult just due to that. I would not recommend this film if you have a fear of clowns, or mimes, or mannequins, or anything like that. If its primary objective is to evoke an emotional response, it certainly does a good job at that. It is haunting. All in all, I think that I like what M. Strange is going for here, but it's a little veering into freaky just for shock value territory where the style is coming through a little bit more than the substance. I think the story is interesting, and the No-inspired execution of wanting to evoke an emotional response in the viewer is also interesting. But where it loses me is in the overt and, quite frankly, unnecessary creepiness of the visuals that just gives it a bit of an edgelord vibe. That's just me, though. He's got a lot of fans for his work, all of which have this same kind of creepy aesthetic. His website labels him as the Walt Disney of weirdos. So he's clearly embracing the reputation he has and the freakiness of his work. Hey, if it's working for him. It's also worth noting that this was a one-man production, and as such, it's an incredibly impressive piece of work for a single person to create. There's two versions of this film as well. The first one, from my understanding, had a completely different score, but there were issues with a falling out with the person that did the music for it. So the second release is all his music as well. Gosh, I'm not this dedicated to anything. This was certainly a very interesting watch, and I did spend a large amount of time looking up interpretations of the film, kind of getting a feel for what all the symbolism means, or different people's takes on it. So bravo to M. Strange for making something quite unique and unlike anything else I have ever seen. It's still really creepy though. And that's it for my review of Heartstring Marionette. Again, I am running a poll on Patreon every week to give you a chance to weigh in on what I should review next. Just pledge to my Patreon to gain exclusive access. If you have something you've always wanted to see me review, or if you just really like my content and would like to support me, I would very much appreciate it. And with that, I'll see you next week. Bye!